Yep. I call the Halsey City Council meeting of April 11th, 2023 to order at 7 p.m. Hillary, can you please administer the oath of office?
I state your name,
I, Ken Lawrenson,
a duly elected counselor for the city of Halsey,
a duly elected counselor for the city of Halsey,
hereby solemnly swear that I will support
I hereby solemnly swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
the Constitution of the United States and the state of Oregon,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Halsey,
and the charter and ordinances of the city of Halsey.
that I will faithfully perform my duties
I will faithfully perform my duties
as counselor for the city of Halsey
as counselor for the city of Halsey
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
How many times have you done that?
Can you call the roll, please?
Mayor Lockhart,
Here.
Council President Isom. Here. Councilor LaFosse,
Here.
Councilor Lorenzo,
Here.
Councilor McMillan,
Here.
Councilor Romer,
Here.
Councilor Strauss. Here.
Okay. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the United States.
Of the United States.
of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. I want to thank everyone who took time to attend tonight. We appreciate your patience with the mixed format of online and telephone and in present. Any guests who are physically present need to fill out the meeting sign-in sheet near the desk there near the doors. And to cut down on any background noise and feedback, remote attendees should mute themselves while not speaking. Members of the public are welcome to unmute themselves to speak during. Next item on the agenda is the council minutes for March 14th. Are there any corrections? No corrections? Yeah, make a motion. Or any motion on it?
Move that the governing body of the city halls of Halsey approve the business items and in the consent agenda as submitted.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next is financial report and journal entries. Are there any questions or discussions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move that the governing body of the city of Halsey approve the March 2023 financial reports and journal entries as submitted.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And are there any agenda adjustments?
With council's permission, I would like to move the Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments annual report and the playground equipment funding request both up under delegations.
Okay. Well, then we will start with the fog.
Do you want me to vote here?
Sure.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. Ryan Vogt, Executive Director for the Oregon Cascades West Council of Governments. Thank you so much for having me again this evening. This is new year, new report, and you all are first out of the gates. So this will be pretty sloppy, just wide open. I am actually very, very thankful that you had me come back. I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple things. One is last time I was here, I gave you the Council of Governments' first attempt at an annual report. And one of the commitments I made to you was that this year we would try to do specific reports for each member agency. So I am happy to share that we were able to do that this year. It should be in your packet. And I also want to recognize that it's our first attempt. And so the information that's in there is still missing a number of things in terms of what our footprint is in the community, most specifically on senior and disability services. Because we have about 30,000 cases throughout the region, but our data systems don't allow us to pull it out at the zip code level or even at the city level right now. So a lot of the work that we are doing with seniors in your community is not represented in the member sheet itself. But I did want to talk a little bit about a couple of things that may be of importance to you, and then really I'm just wide open in case there's any questions, comments, or concerns. Well, if you have concerns, Meg is here, our communications officer, but I'll take the comment. As you all know, the public health emergency that provided for additional supplemental nutrition program for people who are on food stamps ended a month ago. This was one of those areas that had the potential to be pretty explosive because it had dramatic impact on a lot of people who rely on supplemental assistance in order to meet their daily needs for food and nutrition. In our region, Lynn Benton and Lincoln, that's about 28,000 families throughout the state. That was a cutoff of over $7 million a month in terms of how much money was lost, not just from people who need to access food, but also from small businesses and anybody who accepts those payments. I am really glad to hear we spent a lot of time in our agency gearing up for the possibility of how we were going to engage consumers that were really desperate, making sure that we had pathways for getting people to food banks and things of that nature. My supervisory team and my case management team went out to communities. They took flyers out. They met with shop owners. They met with consumers because the state, I would say, did not have quite the communication campaign we felt our consumers needed throughout the area. And throughout that, we did a lot of supplemental communication to make sure people were aware that was coming. For some families, that meant, going from almost $1,000 a month worth of support down to less than $100 a month in support. And after 2 or 3 years, all of us get used to making a budget based on what we're used to receiving. And so that extra effort of communication, I think, probably softened the ripple for a number of people, at least in terms of what we're seeing of traffic coming into our office of people in crisis or concern. That does not still mitigate the fact that that was a real impact for lots of people throughout the community. But I think people are learning to work their way through it, and through those extra communication efforts, I think it softened people not having the warning that that was coming. So we are in the process of looking for a community and economic development director. We've been in that process since November, and I'm not very good at it. So if you know anybody, feel free to send them my way. And then our Rideline brokerage, this is the group that takes consumers who are Medicaid eligible to the doctor when they need to. We're kind of like the Uber for non-emergency medical transportation. We are able to hook people up, and we are going through a transition right now in terms of a new software solution. We are implementing a group called Q-Ride. This is a group that is throughout the nation. They're also implementing into other places in the state right now. So it's a proven product. We're super hopeful you will not see a blip. We have slowed down the implementation to make sure that we can test on both systems before we actually flip them over. But all indicators are that this particular provider has done a great job in other places in the nation of flipping this over and not having an impact on consumers. So we are hopeful that that will work out. We can certainly provide more information through Hillary at the city administrators meetings as that's getting closer, but that should be about 3 or 4 months from now. Other than that, this is your time. It's your meeting. Any questions for me?
Well, back to where you started, you're talking about cutting they cut the funding. We knew it was coming.
Yes, sir.
But unfortunately, what that's done for a lot of people is they have to find another source, and that becomes the food bank. The food banks have not received any additional funding or supplies from anybody. And our local food bank is becoming stressed as far as it can go to cover. Do you see anything in the future to help out with this situation? Because we've got people, you know, most of us day to day, we don't see it, but we have people in our area that depend on food assistance.
Sure.
Especially kids, a lot of kids in the area that need it. And the food bank is having to fill the gap and struggling to do so. You see any funding coming back?
So it's a great question. The supplemental assistance conversation was really at the federal level. We had no say in kind of either the emergency assistance declaration or it going away. I don't personally, I haven't seen anything at the statewide level in terms of support to try and reinforce that system. We work very closely with the Community Services Consortium. They have a person who is the connection point for Linden Food Share, also the many Gleaners programs throughout the community. They've really been grassroots ramping up the efforts. But I'm unfortunately, I'm not seeing anything at the statewide.
I haven't seen anything from Food Share increasing availability of foods to the food banks.
Okay.
When all of a sudden the demands are going way up for the food banks.
I am happy to do a warm handoff for you, Counselor, to Ryan McCambridge over there at Community Services Consortium and see if there's some advocacy that can take place to try and support. But unfortunately, I'm not saying anything. I didn't see anything on the legislative docket, at least come across my desk, that looked like there was statewide parachute in any way to try and help the grassroots organizations keep it going.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay,
All right.
well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So next is playground equipment.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessie. I'm the treasurer of the PTC at the elementary school. And we are asking for a donation for the playground installation. We spent $40,000, and that is with a $10,000 donation from the district on new playground equipment. And the company did not tell us initially that in order for the playground to have a warranty, they have to install it, which is another $14,000. So the PTC has rallied about $8,000 of that 14. So now we're looking to fill in that gap of the $6,000. And so we heard that maybe you guys would have some funds to help donate to us. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about it.
Any questions, comments, concerns? No?
My question would be to Hillary, we still have funds in
Yes.
in
We do. Last fall, so there was, when the school lost parking in front of the building, there was lots of conversation back and forth with the school district, trying to help them out in some way. And at the time, they asked for gravel. And I asked council, you know, you have those community partner contribution funds. And usually it's capped at 500, but you know, it's a unusual circumstance and council approved to give $1,000. I haven't been asked for that money yet. I think they got the one at the elementary school donated, and then we're talking about maybe doing something at the high school. I don't know if that's come together. So when I got the request from the PTC, I asked the superintendent if she was going to need those funds, and it sounds like she's okay with them going another direction. So there's in total in that line item, there's about $1,500. I will mention that each year we usually give something to Sharing Hands, and she hasn't been here yet. So you may want to consider if you want to hold something back for that. Usually it's capped at 500, but you had already decided to help the school to 1,000. It is a different circumstance. So that's sort of your parameters. That's what you have to.
So does the remaining $1,500 include the $1,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, I would entertain a motion.
I know you just said
Oh,
entertain.
we're on page 56.
Right.
If that's helpful.
Do we want to do 500 or do we want to do it?
And that's where I want to get. to.
That's what I was just like, I know you just said a motion, but
That's
I,
gonna get a motion to kind of
I
get
missed.
started.
Yeah,
Everybody's being kind of quiet tonight.
Yeah. yes.
I feel like we made a commitment of $1,000 already to the school, and if they want to change where it is going. I don't have a problem with
Right.
that, since we've already made that commitment. You know how I feel about sharing hands, and I hate to spend everything we've got left and not have the money available to them, because they are more in need now with the situation we were just discussing.
So yeah, if we give 1,000, then that leaves 500 if sharing hands shows up,
Yeah.
which is our normal that we normally
Mhm.
yeah do,
Right.
so. And budget resets July 1st. So.
Anyone else?
No.
Questions, comments, concerns?
No, I'm good with that. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, since we already had to allocate it to the school anyway.
Again, I would entertain a motion.
I move that the governing body of the city of Halsey approve a contribution in the amount of $1,000 to the Central Lynn Elementary Parent Teacher Club for installation of playground equipment at the school.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah.
Have we heard from the sheriff's department?
Sergeant Granby said he was coming, but I know he's coming from another city council meeting, so maybe late tonight.
Okay, so we will come back to him. And we will move to citizen comments. This time for interested citizens and anyone in the audience to address the council on any item of concern. Is there anybody online on the phone in present? Anyone? Anyone? No? Going once? Going twice? Moving on. So that brings us to reports to council. And we'll start off with employee reports, the city administrator.
So I tried to keep this report shorter since I'm also giving you a council priorities report in a few minutes. But I did want to talk to council about potential staffing request. We've had in the office, we had a full-time position switch to high part-time. And that has freed up some hours and we don't have anybody else that can take those at this point. That's created, some thin areas in our schedule, which means that, for example, when I was on vacation, somebody worked sick 5 days in a row and then later got out feeling pneumonia. So as thin as we are, if there would be times where if I were to call out sick, we would have to might have to close City Hall. So because we've had that reduction and because I always budget an allowance, we do have funds in the budget to hire somebody full-time to help out. And I would be hoping to find somebody with enough scheduling flexibility that would be interested in more hours that would be able to flex up to help cover some family leaves in the winter. So, but it's adding a position to the city. I think we can afford it and I think we need it, but it's adding a position.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, if nothing else, to be able to cover areas, but also just to have another person to have little projects done or whatever.
How many hours are you looking at?
I think I was gonna post it at 15 to 30. We could actually probably afford 20. I'm gonna look specifically for the times. I will probably post a schedule, like we're looking for somebody who can fill some particular scheduling gaps. And if we were to hire somebody who couldn't, that would not be helpful. So, yeah, I think that's how I would post it. And that also kind of starts the conversation with them about the possibility of, yeah, I mean, if they can come in at the last minute because somebody else was sick, then they can definitely pick up. There's opportunities to pick up more hours if there's somebody who wants more hours, if they're able to flex and to come help cover when there are gaps.
How much of a time reduction have we decreased?
Not greatly at this point. So we've cut from 40 to 36. That's only 4 hours. I generally budget 25 hours for the municipal clerk instead of 20. So there are those hours that she's not able to flex up at this time to take. So that's 9 hours. But I would plan to pull the librarian over to help cover. And she's still going to be cross-trained, but she can't come over. There are some hours unspent there as well. So that's part of why the bottom was at 15, because I feel like that's something that could safely be promised. And I don't know how many people are interested in a job with that much flex to it, but there may be somebody. And the other advantage here is that gives us the opportunity to work with this person for many months and train some very important skills that would be nice to have some continuity with on leave. Even if we didn't have as much coverage on leave as we currently have in the office, just having somebody who had the opportunity to have some of those skills deep set, where they've experienced all the different things that could happen and had an opportunity to work through the various problems that can occur, having somebody who's fully competent in a couple of areas would make it much easier to do the rest of it with temporary employees.
The thing I see, since I'm here a lot, is that the operational tempo of the office is such that even without somebody going out, it's still going to be incredibly helpful, you know. Especially any other special projects that need to be done or helping the library or what's that?
Not working, you have to.
Well, yeah, yes, that's not helpful. So.
And it's a problem for our citizens if we're closed, when we're
Right.
supposed to be open. Right.
I don't know if this is useful, but I also kind of worked back through. So the position was 32 hours a week when I was in it. And after when I was promoted and hiring Marissa 7 years ago, we made it a full-time position. And I was thinking, you know, what justifies the need to replace this? I mean, we were on 2 part-times before. Why would we want to replace this? But that was in the spring of 2017. In the fall of 2017, we did our first council priorities, council goal setting session. And I started going back through my mind what we were able to accomplish from that set of goals. And it comes down to capacity. It comes down to having the time to dedicate those things, whether it was her or somebody else doing it, or just covering the office so that I could focus on it. In the time that she's been here, she has built 2 websites for the city, which is a value of thousands of dollars. And had she not been full-time, I don't know that she would have had the time to do that. In the time that she's been with the city, she's written 4 SCA grants, 3 of which we were awarded, and that's $300,000. This last January, because there was coverage, I could go to Salem twice, once with the mayor and once with the mayor and Julia, and sit down face to face with our representative and our senator and ask them for $300,000 for our well. Just having the coverage where I could leave the building and go do that, because I'm going to tell you, if you're asking for somebody for that much money, doing it face to face and not over a Zoom meeting is the way to go. I don't know yet if we have that, but if we get that, that pays you for, you know, a dozen part-time employees.
Yeah.
So I really think, you know, we can survive. I'm not a big fan of working sick, and if I ever have a fever, I might close City Hall for the afternoon if there's no coverage. So that would be the cost of running lean, is gaps in coverage, because I don't want somebody else working with pneumonia either. And also just to be aware that things like council priorities or big grants, big projects might slow down a little bit, because if some afternoons it's dead quiet and I get lots of stuff done. And then some afternoons it's phone call, counter, phone call, counter. And an afternoon like that, I'm not writing a grant or writing a letter. I'm just doing customer service. And that's fine. I love it. I love connecting with people, but
You still have other stuff.
other projects will move forward slowly, right? So.
Do you have other tasks though, like other than like covering, like what other, like what would be their priority at their job, assuming, you know, everyone's healthy, good, showing up, you know.
Initially, the first priority for me would be to do that cross training.
Okay.
The piece that I really want high competency in and the piece that will take longest to learn is the utility billing and cash receipting piece. And we did this once before. The timing worked out where we hired Carol about 4 months before Larissa's leave, and Carol was able to just dive into utilities, get a really intensive course, and then when Larissa left, things operated quite smoothly. I know that she answered some questions for us when we needed, but it let us cover our own leave, which meant that investment of that training was retained on site. And it meant that, we didn't have to worry about confidentiality with bringing somebody in from outside the city or any of that. We covered it in-house, and that was it allowed our services to be more continuous. So that would be my first priority for that person. However, we have a records archive cataloging and destruction project. This is the really polite way to say there's 250 boxes. It's probably not that much.
That's
There
phenomenal.
are lots of long package boxes at the shop that need to be gone through, cataloged, and things that are past the destruction date need to be destroyed. There's the asset management program, which is one of the council goals this last time, which is one that later you're going to hear I haven't made a lot of progress with. It'd be really nice to have somebody who could take the lead on that. One of the things about Larissa being part-time is right now she's trying to do all her full-time duties with a part-time schedule. And that is a great deal for the city, but it's not sustainable. And I need her to be able to delegate some things to Maddie or to this other clerk. So one of the things I might do is take some of the filing and some of the clerical things off Maddie's desk and then give them to this person and free Maddie up to do more of the website and some of the other things. So I have, the ladies can tell you, I have maps with lines for cross-training and tasks and projects, and this is one possibility. If you don't do this, we'll do something else, but it's, I do have some redundancy for what I can have that person be busy doing.
I look at that also, our third Thursdays, there's extra stuff there. I know Maddie's been doing it, but then other events that we are looking at doing.
That's the other thing
From-
is to have that assistance with events, because we can always do more events, right? We
Right.
get asked for that. We have the rails downstairs for the art and community center. We haven't had that time to restart that since COVID. So just that little extra bit of time from somebody, we could get them to start
Right.
having artists again. Which, is just a nice thing.
It is. Yeah, another community thing.
And we have money in the budget, because of course, what's important to, I think, all of us here is that we stay in the black.
Yes.
And so my feeling is if you can find somebody that you can keep it in budget and you're up to training them, that's another job for you.
Yeah.
That we should fill in the part-time position.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Life happens sometimes. I mean, even just people getting sick and pneumonia can take a few weeks, but my husband got COVID and was out for 5 weeks at his job. So things happen, and having a skeleton crew is going to put stress on the workers that are already here too. If people feel guilty about, I'm not feeling great today, but there's no one in the office, we can't close City Hall again and then kind of shove themselves in when they probably shouldn't be there. Like, that's not fair to the employees either.
And then we share our germs, and then everybody else. is
Yeah.
too.
It's just right.
And I mean, we've seen how someone else can, even just some of like the projects that Julia was able to do this year with the rare member that we're losing her. We don't know if we're getting another one. The amount that she was done with just one other person, or even if, 10% of what she was done could go on to someone else, that's a huge asset.
And we're coming up on another goal setting in 6 months, and so this would be somebody else who could.
Already?
Spend 2 years.
Really?
You blinked, didn't you?
Yeah.
I did. Wow. Okay.
Anybody else have any questions, concerns, comments? No,
Is there consensus?
I think we're in consensus then.
So just a reminder that we're giving away small trees again for Arbor Day, and we're going to start that at the third Thursday this month. And then we'll be giving some away from the library too. And then we'll do a tree planting in the park on April 29th at 10 a.m. Need to talk to Public Works and kind of hoping that with some of our equipment, we could pre-dig some holes to make it, a little easier. But it actually fits in with our park master plan, the north end of the park. There's some areas that really lack shade, and that the part of that path is really exposed to sun. And so this is, it's a great celebration of Arbor Day, and it moves our park project by about 4 trees. So the library 5K is on April 22nd at 9 a.m. in the park. Please consider walking, running, or volunteering. This is the first time we've offered the event since COVID. We're trying to build it up again. It'd be great to have your participation if you have time. Audience members, you'd be welcome to come help support our library. We have a 5K coming up, and I'll be happy to answer questions about that for more details. If it's actually the question for council is if you want to continue a third Thursday. I feel like you're starting to get a little traction. We've had some very good events. We've also had some events with not great turnout. It is an investment of your time. So the question is if you want to continue it. If you do want to continue it, we need signups because the last sign up we have is for May. So I guess that's 2 questions in one.
Now, we had some discussion about changing the venue maybe as the weather gets better. Is that still?
You can do anything you want, but I think
I
it
would
might
say, I
have good
think that would be
results.
fine.
I do too.
I
It
think
just depends on, I would think it would depend on what we're
What it is.
planning or what the event is that month, kind of thing too.
watermelon eating contest.
Well, there you go. I'm not doing that downstairs in the community.
Right, yeah.
But some of, that one will be at the park.
Some of our most successful summer reading park events have been like fun day at the park, so you could do a version of that, you know?
Yeah.
But, so was that, do you want to continue doing it?
I enjoy doing it.
I think
Mine.
it should at least be through summer to see if, since more people tend to get out and about, especially with it not being as dark and rainy and when sports and stuff are gone, to see if we can get more momentum built up through summer break. At least wait till maybe like the year mark and then reevaluate if it's still every month or every 3 months and do more advertising or.
I think advertising, we do advertising now, but I think we need to get
Somehow.
out and work.
Where we need the reader board in town.
Big flash.
I was wondering if that's about.
I know.
On my list, but I don't remember it out, so.
I know. I just think that would be helpful when we do get it.
Will be.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we have a sign up sheet tonight.
I can go grab it.
Thank you. So our next rare application is complete and submitted. We simultaneously applied for a grant from the Ford Foundation, Ford Family Foundation to help fund it. So I hope we get that because there are lots of big projects on our horizon. The projects that I proposed are basically continuation of council priorities, or though one of them is from the prior cycle, but it is continuing the park project. So if we get that OPRD grant, we're supposed to spend that money within a year. This person could dive into project management, working with contractors, purchasing things, installing things. Some of this stuff is one project, part of it is big enough that needs an RFP, so a formal purchasing process for that. If we don't have the OPRD grant, we're going to want to apply again. So there are lots of places we can get smaller grants. We can also go to local businesses for grants, and we can start doing a piece at a time. And still make progress forward. It'll just be a different kind of progress. Either way, this person can take the lead with that. We're still wanting to work on that comprehensive plan update, a few chapters at a time. Now, Julia has wrapped most of her projects for this year. She's picked up a bunch of extra little things, but she's gonna, I think, start working with the planner. There will still be more to do. So this is a project for the next person. The regional collaboration and economic development piece, economic development both locally in Halsey, but then also working with the real group for regional and connecting us with them. And then emergency energy modernization and disaster resilience, which sounds really fancy, but basically it was a clump and dump of things that we've talked about. There's that energy efficiency study that if we replace a few pieces of equipment at the water plant, it might have been lift station too, we can be paid back for those in a few years with our reduction of energy consumption. Now that study was done in 2018, so it desperately needs to be updated. I don't think any of the numbers are good anymore. And there's probably new equipment possibilities available. So one is updating that. Council has previously expressed interest in researching solar feasibility, both for reduction of energy consumption and operation expenses, but also as a possible emergency backup source for both the water and the sewer system. And then the third piece that I was looking at is a seismic evaluation of our water reservoirs. I think we started with emergency management plan this year, but taking that one step further. Many of you know that my greatest concern in a disaster is water, safe water for folks. And so if those tanks aren't seismic, if they aren't prepared for an earthquake, it would be interesting to find out how much it would cost to make them be so, because clean water can help a lot so that's my pump and dump. So that's an explanation of what that fancy word things.
Sounded good. I'm bored now.
And it hits some buttons for them. They'll like the solar and the energy efficiency and stuff. So the Umpqua Bank transition is complete. It was much less painful than the Columbia Bank transition. We're still going to be passing our routing number on, and we'll eventually have to reprint our check stock, but we survived it with relatively little drama. And I get to introduce our new librarian, Abby Vinson.
Right.
Abby has experience working in a very tiny library that's all staffed with volunteers, so she understands strapped budgets and working with volunteers, and she also is studying her MLS. So she will be bringing in, some more knowledge about library science and some improved processes. And we threw her in at the deep end. She's working on the 5K, followed by the summer reading program. So, she's gonna be a little bit busy, but if you have to stop in at the library and say hi. So, and that's it for my report. Sorry, it's longer than I meant.
Okay, thank you.
So the next is Public Works, Andy, Dion.
Yeah, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So here's my report for the month of March. In the water section, we did some annual water use report and I&I report. And in the water treatment plant, we had a repair that we had to do to the chlorine tank. In the sewer department, it was a rainy day and we got an alarm that our pump number 2 failed, and troubleshooting the situation. It was we had to adjust the there's a valve down there on the pump station, and when it's in the open position and it doesn't make contact, then it needed to be adjusted, excuse me, and we were able to get that pump up and running. Out at the lagoon, we still had a little bit of base rock that we had to do out there, so we spread some rock out there. In the streets department, we got the vac truck back. This is a second transmission. This was under warranty, and so we utilized that when we got it back, and we cleaned some sewer pipes and some drain pipes and a couple catch basins in town. There's one area on J Street that there's a catch basin there, but there's a low spot there. So we checked in and seen how much it costs, and we said, well, let's just build one ourselves. So it's on the radar of installing that and putting that to use in that low spot. And the ODOT project, they got us going. We've been working with them on and off. So that's been keeping us busy also. And in the park, we spread some playground cover with some of that bark dust that is specifically for the areas. And some miscellaneous stuff. We got 2 of the mowers ready to go for the mowing season. We got some parts we're waiting for on the 3rd one. Some of the times we spent, we did some getting some numbers for Hillary for the Public Works budget. The Volkswagen car got a tune-up, and we had the jumping jack that we've used had a issue with it, and we ordered the parts and repaired it. And so that's all I have for this month.
Any questions, comments? Nope. Well, thank you very much, Andy.
Thank you.
And next, the debut of the library with Abby.
Hey, it's my first time giving a report, so bear with me a little bit. So for the library for the month of March, our total circulation since opening is now 11,380. Total number of patrons to date is 572. Total number of items in collection is 4,525. We had, it looks like 95 patrons come in the month of March, which is 15 more than the last 2 months. So that's good. That's an average of 4.6 patrons per day. We added 44 books to the inventory. We got a big donation from the senator's office from the Library of Congress. So that's what all those are doing. Which brings our value of inventory total to $81,403.08. And for updates, we have the 5K coming up. I'm pretty confident in that. I think everything that we can do at this moment is done. It's kind of just waiting for it to actually happen. And for that, we have 3 sponsors so far. We have Room, the Lions Club, and Sweet Home Sanitation. So special thanks and shout out to those people. Like Hillary said, Arbor Day is coming up. We'll be giving away some trees at the library. This is going to be for the month of April, but we purchased all of the Oregon Battle of the Books titles for this year, which was, I think, 38 books. So
Oh, wow.
a bunch of new things are going to be added to the collection. And then I also purchased some books for the Heritage Month for this month. That's something I want to start doing every month. You know, if there's all kinds of national months or history heritage months, like this month is Arab American Heritage Month and National Poetry Month. Next month is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month and Jewish American Heritage Month. And I think like 8 or 9 months out of the year have some dedicated Heritage Month that I'm going to have at least a couple of books on. I'm not going to buy books every single month, every observation, but if there's ever a month that I don't feel like we have anything that fits, I'm going to be filling in some of those gaps, and we'll have displays for those observations. Also, our new artist for the season just came in and put up all her art. Her name's Leah Jordan. Will be in the library through the spring. And Sarah also set up the artists for fall and winter. So for the rest of the year, we have people lined up. And yeah, last time I checked today, we have 11 people signed up for the race, and we expect more people to sign up and show up day of. So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, all the permits have been paid for, all the supplies are ordered. I think we have 8 volunteers committed. So, yeah, pretty confident in all of that. But kind of just waiting for it to get.
Now, if only you could get the t-shirt person to make the t-shirts. Oh.
Yeah. What's the delay on that?
The t-shirt person is waiting for a new logo from
Yes.
Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, well, thank you very much, Abby. Well done. And next is the council priorities report with Hillary.
Sorry. I am remiss to try to give this to you quarterly, and I think it's been closer to 5 or 6 months this time, just with various things that have happened, so I apologize. The engineering for the well will begin this month. If we get direct funding from the state, we promise the engineering will be completed by June. It needs to be a shovel-ready project. And I'm still investigating backup funding options if we don't get funding from the legislature. Building repairs and facility improvements. I did pause research on the asset management and maintenance tracker just because the utility projects are so timely and we want to use those ARPA funds before they leave. We want to do the projects as soon as possible so we can minimize the inflation costs between when the costs of the project were determined and when we actually do it. So I kind of set that aside. It's still important. I just haven't made any progress on it yet. The wastewater treatment and sewer I&I improvements, the I&I report was complete in September. We've applied for financing through DEQ, the whole project. We're hoping to get some loan forgiveness with that, which functions as a grant, which would be amazing if it's possible. Julia is working on, actually, she's pretty much done working on the environmental crosscutters to apply for categorical exclusion. And I've submitted the rest of the attachments. And they sort of let me know that they have lots of money. So I suspect we at least have a loan, but I don't yet have a loan award from them. So I don't know the terms or the interest, the cost. There's a lot of things we don't know yet. So, and of course, you know, council will still make a decision if you want to finance and go forward, if you want to wait and do it a piece at a time. There's some different options too. Financial stewardship, the city revenue actually held steady through COVID with small increases post-COVID due to the housing market. Operations costs were certainly and continue to be impacted by inflation. Utility revenues held steady. The full page bills, which were part of the scope, started in January. And when the problems are resolved, we will work on setting up the portal. And we apologize that we did not anticipate this would be this tricky. There are many. We need our report to talk to the billing company, and we're still working out that. So. The rare program participant Julia has done an amazing job. She's close to finishing up her original 4 projects. She's taken on more projects, and an application has been submitted for a rare member for the next year. Emergency response plan, a second draft was completed in December. She then put that on hold while she finished the master park plan and then applied for the OPRD grant. She's switching back over. She'll get this finished up soon. The Halsey Park improvements, the master plan was completed. The OPRD grant is submitted. We applied for $110,000 with a $60,000 match from the Streets and Pathways Fund. Julia will move on working on the conditional use application to Lynn County for permission to use the land north of the city. And it sounds like that's a county process and should be actually a relatively simple one. We were talking to the county planner about that. Vehicle replacements, the ditch mower was purchased last July. I haven't found a nearby city interested in sharing purchase of a man lift, but we have a couple of leads on where we might be able to access existing equipment through an intergovernmental agreement. And again, I haven't made a lot of progress on this because I've been working on the utility funding. Improved street maintenance, the East B Street project will be completed late summer. We also will be doing some additional chip sealing to preserve existing streets this summer in partnership with Lynn County. They come through every other year. And so the Public Works guys did a survey of the streets. We're looking for asphalt that is not failing so badly that it's like can't be extended, but that is in need. So there's kind of a sweet spot where we're trying to chip seal those roads to extend their life so we don't have to replace them as quickly. In council leadership and community engagement, several councilors have joined local and regional community groups and boards. I did wonder if there's a councilor who's willing to join the Central Lynn Lions Club. Third Thursdays have been happening for 6 months and some are more successful than others. And we talked about this already. So just a question. Is there anybody interested in working with the Central Lynn Lions?
Question, what is the Central Lynn Lions?
It's a community service organization. It serves basically the Central Lynn School District. They meet monthly. They do fundraisers and they volunteer, and the money that they bring in, they turn around and grant back out to the community. They also use it to provide eyeglasses for folks who can't afford eyeglasses, and to sometimes bring a van that does free dental work into town. They're very kind, very passionate people. They don't have a lot of money, but they have done things like volunteer. When we opened our library, they staffed the grand opening. They were all signing people up with their cards and in their blue vests and stuff. So they're a community service group, and it's one night a month.
They're starting to look at doing hearing aids also for people, for low income.
Yeah, I'd consider it. And yeah, we can get more information for them.
I'll put you in
Yeah.
touch with one of the ladies.
Cool.
Rare student, do we have to get a new one or can we?
Yeah. We like the one we.
there is a mechanism for that. She said, well, I like it here, but I'd like to make a little bit of money. All right, to be honest, to me, it was kind of hard to be honest. Unless somebody can find a walker or a grant, we're not gonna be able to. afford it.
We'll have to try it.
I didn't know if that was a thing, or we do have to get a new one each time.
Now, if I keel over, I'm just gonna give you a recommendation, you should hire. her.
She's been phenomenal with stuff she's done.
Right, that's it for me for that, unless there are questions. Yes, sir.
I spoke to Kevin Hamilton about the man lift situation. And he seemed like he'd be willing to extend help with the IGA.
Lynn County was one of the ones I was gonna reach out to. Thank you.
That'd be awesome.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, awesome. Thank you. And that takes us to council reports and the Central Lynn School District with Michelle. Oh, yeah. Oh, sure. He walked in, so we'll get you going up there first. No.
Are you enjoying the relax?
Yep, thank you.
Change it up and just stand by Hillary. Please come up with some questions, because I don't really have a lot to go over. It wasn't a super eventful month.
That's good.
The one thing you'll see on West O, we talked about cars getting stolen last month.
Right.
There was a car stolen, but a guy still left his car unlocked with the keys in the ignition. Luckily, they only took the keys from the vehicle. I didn't steal it, but stuff like that, you know, he's gonna have to replace locks and stuff because they can usually come back and take it. And another one we looked into, which is kind of odd, the storage units were broken into, a few of them. Doing some research there, there's actually a lot of folks who chose not to purchase a lock. And so locks weren't necessarily cut. There were some units in there where they could just live. And there was typical storage unit, if you open it up, right, there's just tons of stuff. And so we're really not even sure if anything's been stolen. We're still trying to wait back lists and whatnot and have owners go through inventories, but we're working with the property owners there and looking at the bays that were found open, and there was multiple that weren't even secured. So it wasn't like there was forced entry. There was a hole cut in a fence. We don't have any suspect or even no camera. Tools left behind. We don't know what was stolen. It's kind of a mess, really. So
They don't have any security cameras out there at all, or dog them, or no?
Interesting.
Oh, my goodness.
try not to say that.
I was gonna say.
No.
Hopefully there isn't.
A lot.
All right.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. I don't think this storage unit's involved. I'm part of like the intel unit once a month, a member from, so I represent the sheriff's office. We do Eugene PD, Springfield, Lane County Sheriff's Office, Cottage Grove, Oak Ridge, Corvallis, Albany, Sweet Home, Lebanon, Staten, Silverton, all over like the Willamette Valley. Law enforcement agencies get together and we kind of talk about who's causing trouble and patterns we're seeing. And a pattern the last couple of months in the Willamette Valley has been storage units. There's just a lot of stuff in there. And like my storage unit, I go there like once every 3 months. And so if it was open, I wouldn't even know until like June probably, and, you know. So they're opportunists, you know, if they just put, you know, it's worth them. Some folks we're seeing, especially in Eugene, they register for the storage unit. They pay $60 and then they have a run of the place all day with minimal traffic, and they're testing out locks and all sorts of stuff. And then they just move on to the other ones, kind of like you pre-organized, like organized crime. Any questions? You guys never ask.
I got one.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily Halsey, but it's Halsey-ish.
Yeah.
A week or two ago out on Falk, there was someone who looked like they didn't negotiate the stop coming towards to the north and ended up way out in the field. Do you know anything about that?
I don't, so if they crossed 228 where the incident occurred, it would be state police.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah, it almost looked, there was enough cops there. It almost looked like it was a chase, but that car was so far out in the field. I don't even know how it got there.
It totally could have been, I'm not, I don't know the details of it, to be honest. But yeah, anything to do with Highway 228, we try to push off on them. So we can have a resource to be elsewhere, you know. I don't know what happened out there, but a crash like that could take, if it was a chase. And then we're working with tow companies to get it out of the muddy field and shut it down the road and all that. I mean, I'm tying up 1 or 2 deputies for like 3 hours, you know, when we have like 7 working for 25 hours.
Well, I'm sorry for the lousy question, man.
No. You can do better next month.
I don't know, every month you tell us to secure our vehicles. Because
Yeah.
it seems like every month we've got at least one.
I know.
And yet we still have this ongoing problem. And I guess it's because it's a small town attitude. We, you know, we know our neighbors.
In the country.
Yeah, but there's somebody going through checking vehicles all the time,
Right.
every month.
How's suspicious vehicle calls?
Were you in on the ones at the high school recently? The catalytic converter was stolen, the tires were taking off the Ford Ranger out there, one of the toolboxes on the pickup was broke into. The kids were gone over in Redmond for the FFA event.
We can talk about that when I get some more details once
Okay,
all the reports are written on that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a mess. It cost the school district a ton of money.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the kid who, well, I mean, I know all of them, but luckily we made sure my son didn't leave his pickup out there,
Good. Yeah.
but yeah.
One thing, you guys. It's how they don't see everything I see, right? I work, Mill City, Lyons, Scioto, Millersburg, Brownsville, Halsey. All the cities, right? I do stuff for Waterloo even. Halsey, if you saw some of the issues some of these big cities are dealing with, you guys would appreciate your city that much more. One vehicle broken into with some keys stolen. There's a lot of cities that would be extremely happy to. And then I'll consider that a property crime, but like the last 2 months, have we had a property crime even? I don't think so. There's another one in here. It's listed as a burglary. But that's like. If you were to know the inside details, it's kind of a friend of a friend that took some stuff. It's not some random act that, you know, was left unlocked. The suspect had a key, used the key to take stuff they thought belonged to them, but it really didn't. That's not something I would consider, you know, that affects the public.
Not a malicious act. No,
Right.
no, we appreciate your response.
Yes.
Thank you.
When I can call about a barking dog and you will show up.
We go to those.
And most of the country doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah, we, you know, talk with other law enforcement agencies, staffing is an issue.
Mhm.
And so they're trimming down a lot of calls they respond to. If you were on vacation for a week and you come back and your garden shed is broken into and everything's gone, it won't go to that. And it's considered a cold theft with no suspects. They'll send you online and you'll fill out a form.
In Seattle, if you have your car stolen from in front of your house, you fill out a form online, they will not respond.
I don't know if you guys call the Lake County Sheriff's Office. We don't have phone trees or anything like that. If you call, somebody's gonna answer the phone. And if you want a deputy to come out to talk with you, we will come out to talk with you. I talked with a lady the other day about kind of staying in her book. And she wanted me to go out there and talk with the captain.
Was I Halsey?
It would be in the report.
Sure does.
We'll find out next month.
Yeah, it's a cool place to work. But I also hope the community realizes that if you start putting your feelers out to other agencies like Lane County and Marion County and Benton County, they won't send deputies to probably 3/4 of the stuff we go to. I watched a fender bender out here. It's not even worth the report for DMV. But to help the process with the insurance companies, like it's worth it to hang out for 20 minutes. So it's clean on both sides and help them exchange information, you know, stuff like that.
Appreciate all you do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, good job. You got any more coffee?
We'll get better. Okay, now we'll go on to Central Lynn School District.
That's,
They are, is that?
that's me. I was, yeah.
Already.
School board meeting was last night and, the big topic is that, for the first time in, nobody can even remember how many years, is that they're, purchasing new curriculum. Going to be started. There've been a lot of research going into it, made up of teachers, administrators, community members, parents, all, I mean, it's been a pretty good group. And I personally didn't even know that they were doing this, but I learned a lot last night about it. They've got some really good curriculum that they're bringing in. There's one from K-6 and then, or K-5 and then 6-12. There'll be 2 different curriculums, but they're supposed to work really good together to be able to flow. And they're, yeah, so that's the big news that they will be going into. They've been piloting, a couple teachers have been piloting it already this spring, but this fall they'll be rolling it out. So that'll be a big transition for everybody because it'll be relearning everything. The teachers is anyways. They'll start on it. Teachers will start in August. It'll roll out to the students in September. So this weekend, this Saturday is the Booster Club auction at the high school. This is the first time they've been able to do it since COVID. And so I was over there last night and saw some of the donations and they've got a ton because it was canceled in 2020, obviously, and they already had a bunch of stuff. So they've had stuff that, you know, in storage since then, plus new stuff. So it should be a pretty good event. So the 20th and 21st is the Little Shop of Horrors play out at the high school too. So that's actually about it.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions? Okay. Then we'll go to the Cascade West Area Commission on Transportation with Randy.
There was not a meeting last month.
That was pretty quick. And easy.
Great report. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And then the next would be the Oregon Cascade West Council on Governments. Jeremy.
And you just heard from Ryan Goat, and I defer to him in the question, because I didn't actually attend the meeting.
Off the hook, so.
Good report. Good job.
Hold on, concise.
Get the feeling I'll be here.
Oh, okay, well, that was quick and easy. Next is old business with Councilor Williamson.
Okay, I guess I'll explain this to you. Some of you know I've been having some health issues. I have COPD. Jacks up when the weather gets bad. Especially if I get exposed to something. And so this year I ended up having to go down south to get in some drier climate to recover. We found it does help. And so although I just sworn in, given council notice that I'm not going to be able to serve my term. I can serve for a while. I want to give you time to figure out, you know, get some applications and figure out who you want to replace me. But by December, I will not be available to serve.
Are you going to be moving down there?
No.
No?
No, I'll just be going down for the winters.
Yeah. Okay.
I love it here.
Yeah.
And I've loved serving on the council. Been here for quite a few years. started out on this building,
Right.
you know, fixing it, moving that door. That was the whole thing that started it all. They asked me to donate a day and move the door from over there to over there. Turned into a 6-month project, remodel this. It was a long door. And from there, became part of the council. I was elected, well, I was filled in a position that had come vacant. And that's happened a couple of times, and I've been elected a couple of times, so I've been around a while. And I really enjoyed doing this and still intend to be part of things here. I am not stepping down from the planning commission yet. I'd like to stay with that. But council is difficult. My cough was so out of control, I couldn't breathe, and definitely could not be here at a meeting because you wouldn't be able to conduct a meeting. And, you know, I had 3 months of that. And at several points, I wondered if I was going to live through it. It's like Jenny standing by, do I call 911? Yeah. So it's not an easy decision to leave, but I feel like I've got to do something for my health. So I'm kind of leaving it up to the council as far as how long I'm here, but by December I need to be gone. So when you want to post it, it's going to be up to you guys.
As long as it takes to get people to apply and say, if we post it now, maybe by December we'll have somebody.
Well.
Yeah.
Since I became mayor, you've been quite the mentor and guide. And so, for selfish reasons, I kind of like to have you stay around. But at the end of the day, you gotta be healthy. You and Jenny gotta take care of yourselves, so I respect your decision and we'll see where it goes with council and try to find somebody.
Yeah, again, I've really enjoyed working with all of you.
Absolutely.
This is a big highlight of my days, is to come work with the city. I've enjoyed volunteering on the projects and I've enjoyed being part of council. And I'll still be around. It's just I need to be gone for the bad weather. When it got down in the 20s, I couldn't breathe. It felt like a fire in my chest. And so I had to do something.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Okay.
yeah, you have to do what's right for you.
Sorry. Well, thank you. Yes.
I just need direction from council. If you really want me to post it right now, if you want to wait a couple of months, I just need to know what you think.
So I guess I'd like to hear from everybody.
I mean, at this point, what I guess makes sense to get through like budget and fiscal year, and then after budget meetings and kind of all that, since you're already trained on budget, we wouldn't have to throw someone who's been here a month into it.
Wait till the end of June. Then.
I mean, June.
Could we start collecting applications now?
Sort of. I mean, if we. It's useful to be clear with somebody about when the seat will be vacant, if that makes sense. So if when Lee resigned, we knew a couple of months ahead of time, so we could post and say, you know, the seat will be vacant on this day, and we could post ahead of time and start collecting applications. Or often when we're posting, it's after a seat's been vacated. But when Wade retired, I think also we were able to post ahead of time because we knew what that date was going to be. I appreciate what Stacy said. Ken has been a mentor to me as well. He's the last person sitting behind that counter that hired me. He's taught me a lot. He also, by the way, didn't mention that he half built the library. And so I would love to hold on to you as long as you can stay. Really, if you're able to stay through the end of the budget and the fiscal year, that would help me.
Happy to do that.
Yeah.
But I would like to be here up till we have a replacement so that there's not a space that's not filled. You know, people have other things happen in their lives, and if we end up short, we don't have quorum simply because I left is,
Right.
I don't want that to happen.
Yeah, I would love to make sure that you get what you want in all this too, but yeah, especially like getting a quorum is especially important for budget. So, like, yeah, I think that'd be the timeline.
So we definitely wait till at least July 1st.
Right.
Do we wait through the end of summer and then go, or do we, but then
We should be posting June, don't you think? Looking at the timelines we've had in filling positions before.
and in between now and then, we can all start doing some recruiting and kind of pass the word that there might become. I mean, can't say definitely, but.
Well, can't we announce that there will be a vacancy?
You announce that there will be a vacancy and that we're looking for volunteers to fill in that position.
Announcing it like that is different than posting.
I'm not sure there is much difference, but I can announce at whatever point you would like.
Right.
So. Do you want me to start accepting applications?
I mean, I would say, not that I want to get rid of Ken, don't get me wrong, I don't want to, but I mean, I was being facetious when I said my comment, but it is true too.
Yeah.
It would be good to get somebody in, but enough before I leave. that
Right.
There's time for them to get used to the position.
Yeah.
Knowledge transfer.
So if we start collecting applications now and then say through September, you know, get somebody in September or by then.
Yeah, I mean, I'll step down anytime you ask me to.
Well, I mean, of course, we want to keep it till December 31st, but
No, I'm not gonna make it to December 30.
I don't think we have a meeting December 31st, so you should be fine. Just the last this.
there we go. So, I give you the
Consensus on that.
That's.
So next is new business and the Parks and Library Committee. Council is asked to consider combining the Parks Committee and the Library Advisory Committee. You have any more you want to add on that?
Just that both the remaining members of both groups are amenable. And we think this will make both groups, you know, both are so small that combining them will give them, you know, more people to work with and more energy to build. And if council does decide to combine them, we'll go ahead and put out a call for more members in our next newsletter and kind of capture that momentum and keep going. We're able to keep working on the park project next year. The library always needs help. So yeah, having that group be active would be very valuable.
I would entertain a motion.
I move that the governing body of the city of Halsey combine the Library Advisory Committee and the Parks Committee into a Parks and Library Advisory Committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And the next item of agenda, I need to abstain. Actual conflict of interest.
right, the next item on the agenda is a park committee application from Mary. I can never pronounce.
Granzo.
Granzo, thank you. Hillary, is there a summary?
Yes, Mary is not able to be here tonight. She had a medical appointment. So, but I have known Mary for many years and she's full of energy and she's positive and she likes to make things happen and very creative and very community minded. And so I hope that, I'm excited that she wants to work with the parks and I hope that, that you will want her to do that.
Okay. Council have any questions? All right. I would entertain a motion.
I move that the governing body of the city of Halsey appoint Mary Granzo to the Parks and Library Committee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Right,
All in favor?
motion and second, those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Say nay. No, motion carries.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is OLCC license renewal recommendation. This is always fun. Hillary, you have a summary? Want to,
This is annual. The OLCC has the final word that council can recommend approval or denial. The OLCC asks that you have a good faith basis under the criteria that was attached, and they're looking for extreme situations. Keeping in mind that canceling a business license, a business or an alcohol license, is the business. So you can do separate motions if you need to. We have 2 liquor license. We have a 7-star convenience store and Julie's Halls and Tavern.
any discussion, concerns, comment? Okay, I entertain a motion.
I move that the governing body of the city of Halsey approve the liquor license renewals for 7-star convenience and Julie's Halsey Tavern.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. The next is the RV camping question. I'd like to say something, but I can't. So Hillary, if you please try to give a summary.
So in 2021, the Oregon legislature passed HB 3115. There are 2 court cases. One is Martin versus the city of Boise. It was from a few years ago. More recently, there was Johnson versus the city of Grants Pass. The Martin versus Boise case had to do with camping in public because some people are homeless and because humans are biological organisms and we have to sleep to make it illegal to sleep anywhere in public. They found that to be not lawful. So, and then Grants Pass related to, those of you who know this better than I do, I apologize, related to reasonability of restrictions. And I think it's specifically related to camping in vehicles. If somebody is homeless, requiring them to get out of their vehicle and camp in a tent and not allowing them to camp in the vehicle reduces their safety and it's not necessarily reasonable. So both cases deal with camping on public property and they relate to the homelessness issue. So the Oregon legislature codified those. If it were just the cases, you can leave things on the books and just not enforce them. And that happens with cities all the time. You have old ordinances. And if you start to enforce one and it's illegal, your attorney says, don't do that. And then you fix it, right? But the state is actually requiring us to remove any language that is in conflict with these. The only thing that we have that's currently a concern, we have a no camping ordinance for the park. But we don't restrict camping in any other area of the city. So there are lots of green spaces where there are unpaved roads. There are lots of other spaces. So the attorney said there was no need to change the language about the park. But we do have restrictions on RVs. And in specific, we have on the public right of way, the restriction that you can be in your RV in Halsey no more than 4 days out of 14. It's meant to enable guests. That one is not going to, that one has to be adjusted. So he recommended, we are allowed to do time, place, and manner restrictions. And I know the city of Sweetheart, they have a police department. They restricted RV camping to be in the parking lot of their police department. They created a place that is available for that. So applying that to Halsey, one of the things you could do is identify certain areas in town where the streets are wide enough. They have curbs, gutters, and sidewalks. If somebody were to camp there, it would not obstruct traffic and it wouldn't damage the roadside. And I'm specifically thinking of West First Street. So one option would be to identify that as a place where it is legal to camp in your RV on public property. He also mentioned a possibility of requiring RVs that are being camped in to move every 4 days, to keep the every 4 day thing and just require them to move at least 200 feet. What this does is ensure that RVs are operational, and this matters because when RVs get abandoned, it's very hard to get them picked up because a lot of them have asbestos in them. So decommissioning them or dealing with them can cost $3,000 to $7,000. So having a requirement that requires the RVs to be drivable, it's less likely they're going to be abandoned. So there are some variations here. The other thing I want to put into the mix is we also have a restriction for living in RVs on private property. In that case, the language is 14 days out of 30. There is no obligation under the House bill for us to change the language about camping on private property. However, if we leave that as restriction in place and we're required to make it legal to live in your RV on public property and we disallow it on private property, we're actually forcing people into a behavior that may actually be more uncomfortable for the town. And by that, I mean, if you have a lot of RVs parked on the street, they obstruct traffic, they obstruct vision, that, somebody could park their RV right in front of your house. When you get phone calls if somebody decides to live in their RV in front of somebody else's house. So it is a question for council also, if we look at our restriction on people living in RVs on private property, because I will get that phone call. Someday I will get that phone call and be explaining, and the person was saying, but if I park behind my brother Joe's house, I'm not in anybody's way and nobody's even going to see me and I'm not bothering anybody. And you're telling me I have to live out on the street because, so it's just a question for council of kind of including that. So what I'm asking for is some direction from council on which way you want to go on that, what language you would like to see in a possible ordinance, if there are time, place, or manner restrictions that I didn't suggest that you want to consider. You could do it by zoning. You could say it's okay in commercial and industrial zones, but not in residential zones. I have some concern about our residential streets. They're very narrow. Most of them have bridges. They have gravel or grass verges and very heavy equipment, heavy vehicles on those, they tear them up. And then you have a mud sink and then you have a drainage problem that has to be fixed. So okay, I'll own this. This is Hillary. This is my recommendation. I would be looking at streets that appear to be durable enough to accept that kind of traffic. So
When we were up at City Day in Salem, this issue came up. And it was rather, what would you say? Vocal. And I think one of the things that they did discuss, not really at length, but quite a bit really, was the zoning, creating a zoning area for that and not allowing it to be in residential areas. I think at this point, it's
not like you want to set up a homeless camp here, so I don't know. That's what it sounds like to me, that you're planning on saying a homeless camp here. You're okay with it. And that bothering me.
Okay.
Extremely.
Pardon me?
That bothers me a lot, that you are almost welcoming it here.
Well, it's not so much as welcoming as it's stay long.
Yeah, state's saying that we need to allow them someplace.
That usually brings crime. Most kind of people bring crime with them. It's just a fact, non-fact, statistical fact. It's not good.
Yeah.
You're inviting crime into the city when you do that. You are. You can't deny that. You can, I guess. Go ahead.
Okay, back to the issue at hand. With the zoning, I think that would be the least intrusive. The manner of motion would be, I would think, critical.
Yes. If you have a non-operable vehicle and you park it in the right of way, it is required to be moved and periodically. You cannot leave one there with flat tires. I had a tenant that I had to deal with about this. Kept leaving his broke down pickup in the right of way. You can't do that. So easy for us to say you can't park your RV here and not move it. It has to be moved on a regular basis, just like any other vehicle. That makes sense. And I don't want it in front of my house.
Right.
I have one of the few places where there is room to put one in front of my house and I don't want it there because I use that for my own use. A lot of the city, we've got drainage ditches.
Right.
There's not room.
There's.
And that brings up an issue of with the drainage is the potential for discharge.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we have a rule in the city, an ordinance that does not allow them to dump into our wastewater
Right.
or storm drains,
Right.
RVs.
There are issues that come with RV residency. I will say, not to make a generalization, but I know of someone who came to council a year or two ago, it was probably like 2, and requested hardship to live on a property for 6 months in their RV. Council granted it. There were 0 complaints. They did it very carefully, very respectfully, very well. Not everybody is like that. We've also had people start to live in RVs and then there's accumulation of debris.
Right.
I guess what I would say is remember that we have other ordinance and the burden just shifts. The city will then need to make sure we enforce our nuisance ordinance that relates to the accumulation of garbage or the accumulation of, so we have an ordinance that says it's illegal to discharge sewage into the city system. It's harder to catch that. Sometimes we can. We have an ordinance about illicit ditching, discharge into ditches. Again, it'll be on us to try to catch that. I don't, we have the staffing we have.
I was just
Sheriff
gonna
Department
say,
can help.
who enforces it?
Yeah.
You driving around Public Works? I mean.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
there's the limit.
Yeah.
There's the-
Yeah, but I bet you if somebody parks their RV in front of my house, I'm gonna be watching that thing.
Yeah.
As soon as they open a drain.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna shoot them, but they are gonna get, there's gonna be a call made.
We heard nothing.
Yeah, I don't want it dumped in my ditch. I don't want it dumped in my sewer. I've got a clean out right there. It'd be easy to get to, but I don't want it dumped in my sewer. Our
Yeah.
plant doesn't deal with some of the chemicals that are put into,
Right.
when they're using an RV. I don't ever dump mine here.
And we do have the issue where the zoning goes farther back into a lot of the residences.
Right.
Yeah. Also,
That's a very good point. The east side of West Third Street is zoned commercial. West Third Street's a little wider than some of the other residential streets, but it's got soft verges. So it might be easier to designate West First Street. I will say, I know that Blue Heron has curbs and gutters and sidewalks, but Blue Heron, the streets are too.
They're
too narrow.
way too.
Yeah.
We get complaints regularly about anything that's parked there, people can't get through anymore, so I would not want to use Blue Heron.
what's the distance? Why 200 feet?
It was something our attorney works with many small cities, and I am sure he's been working with other small cities, and part of what he gave me is something that he came up with or that another small city was using. I think it was an example. So you could say 100 feet, you could say 500 feet. It's a concept.
How about 5 miles?
1.25.
But I was gonna say,
That'd work.
then you're looking at your new.
Farther than you could.
Well, that's just it. It's like you want to make it far enough that, they don't just push it,
Right.
Yeah.
Shit with the song.
yeah. 5 miles sounds great.
Yeah.
So at this point, it sounds like we kind of have a consensus. I'd like to see a firm consensus as to language and such. Is there any specific verbiage or guidance that you guys have that you want to see applied towards it?
Well, I don't want to see it in any residential area.
Right.
No,
I mean, more than 200 feet. I don't know if someone has a. anything.
Well, our blocks are 100 feet plus the roadway, so it's 160 feet from. Say the north corner of this street to the north corner of the next street.
right.
Um,
So the
If
first
so.
part south of.
so if you said 160 feet, it's roughly
Just one.
same spot, next block. is-
Well, the other sticky wicket you got there is if people own RVs and they have them parked in the right of way,
Right.
technically,
Mhm.
they're going to have to move theirs also.
Not living in them. And that's the difference.
I don't think that matters.
They're not supposed to be part
Not
of
supposed
the
to be-
city right away.
Well,
Either.
it's true. We have ordinances that don't allow them to park in. It depends on. We have acted on ones that have been an issue where it has obstructed traffic or view. But we have quite a few people in town that have their RVs parked in the right of way, but not on the road. It's in the gravel.
Right.
It's in the right of way.
But we just need to be careful.
Haven't actually acted on those because
I know
They haven't-
there are some that
they
have.
haven't been a
acted on.
problem.
My neighbors. is active
We
on
do
that.
actually 40 letters last year. It was.
Yeah, it's, I
It was
would,
awkward because we didn't enforce it as much during COVID, so there's always that curve,
Yeah.
getting used to it again. But just a point to what Councilor Romer said. And from an ordinance enforcement perspective, I will tell you, it's very hard for us to determine whether somebody's living in an RV or it's parked there. So that does open up a question. We do have an ordinance against trailers, RVs, boats being parked in the right of way, with the exception of a guest who's coming for 4 days to stay in their RV.
Yeah.
So I guess be prepared then for it to be harder. Now, you can definitely define boats and trailers as opposed to a living situation, because again, this only applies to camping. And please don't open it up to all trailers because
Don't get anything done.
but it will complicate whether or not I can make somebody move an RV off the right of way, because they could say they're living in it and then they have to move it they have to move it 160 feet every 4 days, but it will definitely change ordinance enforcement for us. But just as a heads up, it is very hard to determine or prove that somebody's living in an RV or not living in an RV.
They always do.
Yes.
I think staying with 200 feet is just a good hard round number. Instead of 165 feet. Is that from the back of the RV or the front of the RV? It's 200 feet, it's 2 blocks.
Do you want to address RVs on private property?
Personally, I think it's private property.
Right.
We currently allow,
I'm at.
You on your own property,
we
it's
allow 2 weeks on private property. Is that correct?
Right.
14 days, out of 30.
And I think on that, we can address that if that becomes an issue. In going down the road. I don't expect that it would. But.
We had the case during COVID, but
Right.
they approached us.
Well, and we had several cases during the fires where people
Right.
brought their RVs in and stayed here and we allowed it.
And I think on those cases,
You want-
those were emergency
Yeah.
actions.
Do you want to keep the mechanism where they apply to council to live in an
Yes.
RV?
Yes.
Absolutely.
If it's gonna be beyond what we're allowing, yes.
With rent the way it is now, too, I know some people have a real hard time finding where to even live.
Right.
Mhm.
House is $2,500 a month.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, an RV space now runs $400 to $500 a month, not including the utilities. It's getting expensive.
Yeah.
My first house was only $87.
Wow. We spend that in coffee a month.
Oh, you're right.
Really? What do you think, Randy?
How much of it did you build?
I don't like any of it.
It was actually, it was existing house. I just fixed it up. But yeah, that included taxes and insurance, by the way.
So we're talking about RVs, but then going back and reading this, that talk about camping, sitting, lying, sleeping, and keeping warm or dry. Are we talking about those things too, or are we just talking about living in the RVs?
Well, we don't have anything else in our ordinances
Right.
that I saw or that the attorney mentioned that would infringe on somebody's ability to do that, those things. Living in a vehicle, sleeping in a vehicle, or sleeping in an RV is one of the ways they would have access to those things to stay
Mhm.
warm or dry. We don't have, some cities have lots and lots of regulations about where you can sit, you know, they have benches that keep you from being able to lie down on them, they have, you know, a lot more rules, a lot more regulation than we do. So this is the only one that looked really problematical to the attorney in terms of our needing to adjust it before July 1st. But yeah, this is the one that he recommended looking into at this time,
And this has to, something has to be changed by July 1st.
at least as regards to
The
camping
state,
public property.
yeah.
The thing we need to remember is that both Martin and Johnson is considered case law now.
Yeah,
And so that if there is a criminal action or civil suit brought against the city, those would be considered two pieces of case law. And I'm sure there's more.
So we would live.
right, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything with the doorways of businesses?
No, but it's a very good point, especially if you went with a zoning, because the
Right.
zoning thing where it's okay to camp in commercial property. I'm gonna tell you, the businesses. Those that we don't have very many.
Yeah.
And if I were a business owner in Halsey, I'd say, wait, you're gonna make people park their RV in front of my building and nobody's gonna be able to find my business. And then if I were in the industrial zone, I'd be saying, wait, you're gonna park the RV where I need to park my trucks and it's gonna mess up their turning radius. This is not comfortable for anybody.
Right.
I will mention that it isn't currently something we have a lot of issue with in Halsey. But I suspect it's coming. You know, we tend to get hit with things about 3 to 5 years after other communities do. It doesn't mean it doesn't get here. It just means we get a little more time to prepare.
I know when Hillary and I went to the League of Oregon City Council LOC conference in Bend, the #1 reigning theme with all of the cities, no matter how small, how big, was homelessness or unhoused people.
And one of the problems that they're also having is if you designate a space, you know, specifically for that, they will fill it.
They
Yeah.
will fill it plus some.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a statewide issue.
Yeah, we are dealing with the unhoused. We just don't see them so much here.
It's amazing.
Because the majority of them in our community are couch surfing.
You talk to the schools, it's.
There's a bunch of
amazing.
kids in
Yes.
our school. That's exactly what they're doing,
Unreal amount.
that they're couch surfing. That you don't realize it in our normal day to day, but that's what's going on here.
We have families living in their cars.
Yeah.
Between
We have,
Halsey and Brownsville.
yeah, we have a few, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they come to the food bank regularly.
Yeah. No, I know just from my husband being on school board, but then also my son working there. I mean, just different interactions with the school. It's an unreal number. You would be shocked. Very sad. Yeah.
And it's gonna continue to get worse because the
Unfortunately.
cost of everything has gone up
Yeah.
terribly and the cost of housing has gone up tremendously in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I don't think this is anything any of us are welcoming or wanting.
Right.
At all. I mean, I know I don't want it in my backyard. But it is something that we at least have to put on the table and look at.
Well, looks like the state has our arm twisted, hasn't it?
There is that too.
Right. So the
Yeah.
state's saying we have to comply.
We need to make sure that while we're in compliance with 3115, that we are protecting the city also.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that's the biggest part.
And the only reasonable way I see to do that is to provide an area that's halfway acceptable that they can park an RV.
And I don't think it's something we're gonna like put neon signs out and
No, we're not
advertise.
gonna advertise it. It's just that, you know, when they show up in front of my house and said the only place you can legally do that is over here.
No, Right.
At least I'm not telling them, no, you can't do that in Halsey at all, because that's gonna bring a lawsuit.
Yes.
Well, if they didn't know you were a counselor, but I can't tell.
Yeah.
So, is there a consensus or direction you want? Is there something you want ordinance language that you would like prefer?
Well, I think it's got to not obstruct a driveway, obstruct views in intersections
Stop signs.
that, not in a residential area. Needs to be moved on sounds like every 4 days.
200 feet. is that
200
what we
feet.
said?
Not create a health hazard.
The one thing, I mean, I'm agreeing with all this, it's just the enforcement of it.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
it's a burden on city staff.
Well, I got a feeling that we have people parking their beat down RVs in front of people's homes. We're gonna hear about it. We're not gonna have to go out and look for it because the owners of the property are gonna come to us.
Right.
What the heck's this about?
We also have to remember, we have the sheriff's department doing patrols.
Yeah.
And the state police do come through quite a bit as well.
They do, actually.
So there's that as well, and they're gonna catch you stuff.
So adding the restriction to, from residential, and it occurs to me that many people in this town have travel trailers or campers.
Right.
And they use that 4-day thing to get their camper out, put it on the street in front of their house, clean it out, load it up,
Yeah.
unload
Right.
it, get ready
Do
to
it.
go.
Yeah.
How do you feel about keeping that 4-day, within residential zones? I mean, it makes it more complicated. But that is taking something away that people use now.
I think we
About
should
that.
keep it, and if it becomes an issue, we address it at that time.
Well, and of course, if you're saying they gotta move it every 4 days, somebody's not gonna move it in front of their neighbor's house. If it's their RV, they're gonna move it back onto their property.
How easy is it to catch if someone's actually been there for more than 4 days?
So in the city, because we are a small city, we try not to be jerks. What we do is we notice there are certain times a year where we drive around and do active enforcement. And that's when I was talking about when we sent out 42 letters or something we've done in the whole town.
Mhm.
And we do that spring when we're doing the noxious weed enforcement. We also look at right of ways. Shifting into fall and winter, we generally kind of shift to complaint based or responding to what we see. So then spring, we've got to clean up again. It's just the cycle we've been using, and it has to do in part with our staff capacity, but and I lost your question, I'm sorry.
How are we able to even know if they've been there for more than 4 days? Like, how do we track this?
So if we observe it, what'll happen is I'll make a note, okay, there's an RV on the corner of.
So we all go,
Street.
hey,
I probably know whose RV it is on the corner of J Street. And I make a note of the date, and I wait more than 4 days. Now, it may have been there for a few days before I saw it, but I'll wait for 5 days and then I'll call and say, hey, there's our RV in front of your house. Is that yours? And I'm gonna either get, yes, it is, or no, it isn't. And then generally, if they're willing to make a promise to remove it from the right of way, I'll make a note that they made that promise, but we're gentle we try to be gentle with this rather than, okay, it's 3 days and
Yeah.
23 hours and 59 minutes. I'm sitting in the sheriff. I mean,
right.
this is up to council, how gently or how fiercely you want me to
Yeah,
enforce.
well,
ordinances.
there's at least one RV owner every block in the
yeah,
town.
there is.
There's a lot of RVs here.
Yeah,
But I'm not so much asking as like the enforcement part of it, just more so as far as like the tracking. Because is it necessary to have them there for 4 days? Would it be easier to know, like if it's a 2 days limit, right? I think it'd be a lot easier to know if that 2 day limit is being hit rather than a 4 day limit. I mean,
Yeah, what's the 4 days was for is we have a holiday weekend. And somebody has family members come for the holiday.
right.
And so they park the RV out there and allow those family members to stay in it for the 3 or 4 day
Gotcha.
weekend.
Good.
And so that's how the 4 days ended up coming about.
Because my thought track is 2 day weekend, right? So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
More likely they're gonna come for a holiday.
Right, yeah,
And that becomes the extra room.
makes sense.
so I will draft something and send it to the attorney and have him give us some edits and bring it to you in a future council meeting. Is that okay?
That sounds fine.
Sounds great.
So the way things are set up now, could somebody, we've got those right of ways for, I don't even know what they're for. They look like they're for streets that go through there and their city property. Could somebody go pitch a tent there and there's nothing we could do about it?
Yes.
So should we deal with that now too, just in case it does come up or?
Well, you can't make it illegal to camp everywhere.
Right.
So part of the reason the attorney said we could keep the no camping in the park is because we're not restricting camping on those green spaces. So if you decided to restrict camping on those green spaces, then you need to make it legal to camp in the park or on the sidewalk or somewhere else in public. He sort of said, do you have a camping problem in Halsey yet? And I said, no.
Yeah.
I know that we have housing insecure people, but we don't currently have camping. So I guess what the mayor said a couple times as well, we can deal with it when it's a problem. I don't think we're people's first destination because there aren't as many services here as there are in some other communities.
Passing through usually.
Yeah. We had a gentleman a couple of years ago, several years ago, you would remember this, on that corner, he was panhandling. And I went into the Mexican restaurant to buy him a gift certificate. And I came out and I gave it to him. He was very nice. The lady in the Mexican restaurant, I swear she snickered at me. I think I might have been the third or fourth person that day to buy him a gift certificate. He was up to his ears in free Mexican food. And he did end up moving down the road a little bit later, but. Nice guy, got a handshake.
Yes.
I'm surrounded by two of those right of ways.
Mhm.
There's a very large one in Randy Beck's house.
Right.
Pitching a tent, is there still going to be rules about space from a residence? I mean, like I said, I'm surrounded on two sides. My house is pretty secluded.
Mhm.
Somebody were to pull something out of his car, nobody would see it.
Right.
His daughters and wife walk back and forth from that right away
Right.
every day. And so that's just something. I just am curious if there's gonna be a distance thing, even that would be difficult, but I don't. You know, I don't wanna walk out my door and have somebody park 15 feet from my house at a tent.
We could do the opposite. We could just remove the camping restriction in the park. I wanted to acknowledge something that Mary said earlier, which is that if we create a space, we invite it in.
Right.
And it's one of the reasons I didn't want to tinker too much and kind of create, okay, you can park here, you can camp here if you do all of these things, because we've said, hey, we've created the space for it. But we're not allowed to have the restriction everywhere.
Right.
So one option would be to remove the restriction at the park. There are public bathrooms there are. Jesus, what kids.
Yeah, a lot of kids using that.
It's not fun for.
Yeah.
This isn't what we want at all.
The thing you have to understand, Mary, is that this is the law we have to live by. The case law in Martin versus City of Boise was brutal. And it hurt them bad. And then the city of Grants Pass got hit hard as well.
So I suppose then you just do it and some kid gets hurt and then, oh, well, the kid got hurt.
Well, that's not that at all.
What we're doing is trying to prevent the city or protect the city from getting sued. It's not that we're inviting it, not that we're creating it. We're trying to protect. We have to go ahead of things.
If this is a big issue for you, Mary, the best thing you can do is contact your state representatives.
Yeah. Because unfortunately, it's already.
All about
Yeah.
state law. We have to abide by it.
I'd venture to guess we all agree with you.
100%.
Right.
It is.
Welcome to my world.
It is. Oh, it totally is. Yeah.
One thing to mention is our insurance company said very clearly during COVID that if we are actively and knowingly violating state law or state mandates,
Right.
then they will not
We're not
cover us.
covered. Yeah.
So if we're violating a state law, and we get sued, you do not have insurance coverage that will come right out of your general fund.
And it will shut the.
Right now, we're talking as government people here. We're not talking just public citizens. If we were on the other side of the table right now, I'm pretty sure we all would have different opinion, but we have to do our position here to protect the citizens of Halsey.
I don't know, I just think just the playground is kind of a safety place for kids in a way.
I would prefer to.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah,
But
I think we could reasonably enforce where they set the tent up as far as keeping it off of property lines and stuff, giving some space, but keeping them out of those right of ways that currently are just green spaces.
Right.
I don't think we could legally do that. And I don't want to just say, okay, you could camp in this one right here. Like you said, like she's saying, that becomes an invitation.
Right.
That maybe, it may sound like kicking the can down the road, but we could deal with the camping question when it starts to be a problem.
Yeah.
And that would let what you draft be responsive to the actual problems rather than problems we're trying to anticipate and imagine.
Right. So we don't know really what that's gonna look like.
You know, couldn't you got your first homeless person, say, put an RV back there. The first one, before anyone else gets here, couldn't you go to that group and say, hey, we can help you maybe? Where do you need to go? Obviously, you don't need to be here because there's nothing here for you. We can help you go somewhere to do what you need to do instead of just camp here in our town and do nothing. I don't know. Seems like it's something you can do.
We have to have a mechanism first. And this is the first step in that mechanism.
I'm not a huge fan of being reflexive. If we could get out in front of it, I think that would be better so that we had something in place at least to build off of.
Right.
And you can always add to it or adjust it as we need to go.
I agree.
I agree as well.
Because unfortunately, it's probably
Getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. Again, kind of like we've said, I think it's eventually something's going to happen. Said, usually 3 to 5 years down past everyone else, and I already know that there's, some problems in Brownsville. That's really not that far away, so we can anticipate a problem occurring here. So I'd rather take steps to have something in place prior to, having to.
So I know what you want for RVs. What would you like for camping?
I still think the park should be a safe place and not have camping there.
No,
I agree.
not at all.
The rest of the areas, we're just gonna have to leave it as it stands now and deal with it.
Yeah.
If it comes up.
There are like a handful of those spaces in town, aren't there?
Yeah, where currently the construction site
Oh, 3 there.
is
Yeah.
one of ours. There's a right of way. Which would be E between 4th and 5th.
Right.
And then there's another one, about 4 blocks up from there, 5 blocks up.
There's one at East A Street.
Right.
Councilman McMillan probably knows them all. He used to mow them all.
Long time.
Yeah. So yeah, there's 3 or 4.
It's quite a few.
What is the one right over here, just on the other side of the tracks?
East A Street.
Bingo.
And then there's also the triangle out here.
Right. That's what I feel like that'd be.
That's
hot
where our
spot.
park's going.
Right.
Well, we don't really want them there.
Right.
That's a great thing to have when people are driving into our town.
The other thing about the park at the other end of
But
it.
if we call that a park and we're saying they can't camp in the parks,
Is that considered?
would that be
considered?
part of it or
Not
we only
yet, it's not.
currently that?
It's in the park master plan that you adopted. It's not phase one. Phase one is doing a big chunk of the work on the Memorial Park. It's probably phase two. Now Julia is starting to work on the conditional use permit for that to allow it to be a park. Part of that land is outside the city limits of Halsey, and I have no idea what that does. We're gonna work on a conditional use permit to use as a park. It is zoned EFU. There is a process for that. And we anticipate that may be successful because it's not a particularly farmable piece of land. It used to be a street, very hard packed soil under there. So, but some part is outside the city, so I don't know what happens then. And we were gonna try to do that without doing an annexation. It would actually be a UGB amendment followed by an annexation, followed by a rezone, which is a pretty complicated pathway to take. And it sounded like it would be legal for us to use the EFU as farm, or as park. I don't know. I suspect that might be a temporary solution until we are ready to put a park there.
Once it's considered a park, is it covered to not have people be?
It's up to you. You could designate this. I mean, Brownsville has a campground in their park, right? A real one. So you could designate that as the park that you can camp in. I
I'd prefer to not have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, especially, I'm sure.
As much fun as this conversation has been,
Yeah. We're running
then
out of
with
time
on
here.
firmly planted cheek, we have 7 minutes. and then we have to adjourn. So, we need to get some movement here.
I know what you want for RVs. What would you like me to do with camping?
Same thing, they have to pick up their tent every 4 days.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean,
I mean, in some manner, you can actually have time restrictions. You can require them to have packed up and moved on by 7 a.m.
Yes,
You, like you could say from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. or.
that's,
They're not gonna wanna stay here if we make them do that.
I think that's a good idea. Let's do that.
It is a good idea for tents,
Yeah.
for camping.
I think,
Yeah, they gotta pick up and move.
I mean, they plan to pitch that tent and stay, so
Yeah.
if they're required to move, I feel like
Right.
we don't.
well, I mean, I think that's, it all is under the same umbrella. So if we're doing that with the RVs, do it with the rest of them.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so we need to make a decision here because we have 2 resolutions we need to get done.
They're fast.
yeah, they're not, I think we've made a decision, haven't we?
Okay,
Sounds like it was good.
I'll draft some stuff and send it to the attorney, and when it comes back, you can, we can.
great, awesome, thank you. Moving on. Resolution 2023-720. Resolution for the city of Halsey proclaiming April 28th, 2023 as Arbor Day in the city of Halsey. Hillary, anything you want to add on that?
This is part of our Tree Cities program. I hope everybody likes trees. We
You're
joined that
good.
program.
Yep, love it.
We were on the radio.
Mayor, just skipped.
What's that?
Thank you, skipped. Or
Oh, city administrative evaluation.
that's.
Right.
Didn't you see him?
It is time for city administrators evaluation. And you should all have that information. Get that to me. By.
By the meeting next
by
month.
Next month, yeah. And then I can tabulate all the information and then we can sit down and discuss. Okay, any questions?
No.
Groovy. Now, moving on. Tree City. Resolution for the city of Halsey coming April 28th, et cetera. I entertain a motion.
I move that the governing body of the city of Halsey adopt resolution 2023-720A. Resolution of the city of Halsey proclaiming April 28th, 2023 as Arbor Day in the city of Halsey.
Second.
Oh,
Hi.
hi. Moving on.
We got things to do.
Resolution 2023-721, resolution for the city of Halsey proclaiming April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month. Pretty self-explanatory. I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the governing body of the city of Halsey adopt resolution 2023-721, a resolution of the city of Halsey proclaiming April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
So.
Groovy. Awesome. Thank you. Adjourned at